All right, well, thanks for everyone for being here today. My name is Alex. I've been a landlord for almost 20 years. I started when I was 17. So I started buying properties in London. My bread and butter is student rentals. That's my niche. So I have a lot of experience as a landlord. I joined SingleKey about a year ago. Friends from Ivy had started it. And it is a very simple proposition. It is really meant to take the risk out of renting. And there are different tools that we offer that help you do that. And again, as I noted before, it's so tough nowadays. You know, in my role at SingleKey, I find fake documents every single day, without fail. Be it pay stubs, letter of employments, credit checks, you name it, I've seen it. So really today, hopefully I can give you a quick overview of what we do, a quick idea of how you can use this tool to empower yourself and be better landlords as a whole and mitigate risk. SingleKey was started in about 2017. The founder, Viller, started seeing a gap in the market whereby if anyone's been in the landlord space for a while, it was extremely difficult for anyone to obtain a credit check and a background check for a prospective tenant. You know, you had to be creative, right? You know, 5 years ago I had to get my mortgage broker to pull those credit reports, and even then, they're just gibberish to me because it's 2 pages of code, right? So this has come in. It's fantastic if you guys are newer to the game or have been in the game for a while. This is a game changer because now you get information that you wouldn't have been able to get 5 years ago, right? So I'll touch upon this. We have another product which is the rent guarantee, but we'll go for that. As you know, as Simone has said, as you've heard on the news, it's a big deal nowadays. You know, delays, issues with tenants, everyone's scared. Simone can probably attest, a lot of times the scary stories on the news are oftentimes with errors that landlords have made, and essentially you go back to the back of the line. So it's about 6 to 8 months, she is correct, but if you make an error, it could be 12 to 16, so be very mindful. As Simone and others have said, we're kind of in like a perfect storm right now. Rental prices have kind of leveled off. It's dropping because there are more properties out there. Tenant defaults are on the rise, and it's just Ontario as a whole, Canada as a whole, has just been more difficult as a whole. So that's what you're seeing, and vacancies are slowly increasing as well. But I'm here to basically tell you there's 3 things that you can do to help in your journey as a landlord. First is a tenant screening report. So the tenant screening report, think of it as a credit check and a background check on the tenant. And it's $25 and it's super easy for you to obtain. So all you have to do, come to SingleKey, get a free account, get that account verified, and after you do that, you will have full access to the system. And all you need from that prospective tenant is their name, phone number, and email address, and then you can send the invitation off to them, and you can obtain their credit and their background. The beauty of it is, a lot of times people say, oh, do I have the authorization? Do I have the permission to do that? Well, if you send the invitation, it's all built in. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about them always calling you back and say, hey, why'd you run my credit? I didn't let you. It's all built in. Consent, there's a little checkbox that says, yes, I consent to it. First thing. So right now, the report comes from Equifax, so it's a full Equifax report. Think of if anyone has seen or obtained a Equifax report for themselves, it's about a 30-40 page report. Not very comprehensible. We will condense that to about 7 to 9 pages and essentially give you proper information, and it's all understandable. It's, there's diagrams, there's flags, there's little exclamation marks to allow you to be more competent in reading these information. Moving forward, you will also have the ability to run credit checks on TransUnion. So what we found through our internal research is that the reports do vary a little bit. Sometimes some items are captured in Equifax and sometimes they're not captured in TransUnion. So, it depends how intense you want to be. If you're comfortable with just Equifax, great. If you want to cover all your bases, do both, because different organizations, institutes do report to different bureaus. Second step. So we have an ability for you to collect rent on our platform. It's completely free for you to use, up to 3 units. And think of it as a pre-authorized debit tool. So something you would use for a utility company at your home. And essentially, the landlord will go in, they'll set up their account, they will put in their banking information, they'll upload their void check. And then as part of the process, one of the steps will be that you will send an invitation to the tenant, and the tenant will have the opportunity to upload their void check, put in their banking information, and it gets set up that way. 2 things you have to note about this particular tool. One, it will report to the credit bureau. So anytime they're paying rent on time, they're building credit, which is nice. If they are not, then it dings them every month for NSF, late payment. The second thing you have to note about this tool is that it has a 3 to 5 business day delay, because our wonderful banking system in Canada is very archaic. It does take some time for that money to deposit. So keep that in mind. If you're interested in this tool, make sure you have a buffer. Have an extra month of rent or a mortgage payment in there, 2 months, because with the statutory holidays always falling on a weekend and then the banks getting the lieu day on the Monday, sometimes you won't see rent until the 8th or the 9th of the month, and you could stress out if you didn't know about that. Lastly is the rent guarantee program. I'll touch upon it further at the end of the presentation, so I'll just leave that here, but essentially it covers rent for up to $60,000 or 12 months, whichever comes first. There's damage protection built into the program, which is $10,000, and then evictions are included in that program. Any questions so far? Okay, so tenant screening report. So we are now the largest tenant screening report provider in Canada. I don't know how many of you have heard of Neighborly, but we bought them out last year. So we've taken over them. We have about 120,000 landlords that use us actively on our platform, and we've probably serviced close to 650,000 tenants across North America so far. But it's very, very comprehensive. Right off the bat, you will have scores that are on the top. So it'll give you a credit score out of 850. It'll give you debt payments, so similar to an Equifax report. It'll give you how much that individual owes, what their monthly commitments are for each of those line items, and then how much total it would be. Lastly, it's rent to income ratio. So a lot of times what you'll find is, the individual makes $10,000, $12,000, but they have a lot of debt. So will they be able to afford that rent, right? You have to make that determination and see if it's viable. So again, it's all-encompassing. If you send the invitation to them, they start filling out a lot of that information, and it starts generating information for you to make an educated decision. With the system, we always try to match information. So information as in, let's say, they're saying, oh, I live here, or I've previously lived here. So we always have the system in place where Equifax will be able to cross-reference to make sure that information is correct, to save you time. So if it matches, then you'll get a check mark and you're good to go. New features of the report is that what you'll find, most tenants don't read the ads at all. So you can say no pets, you can say you don't have parking, none of them read it. So this is a good way to collect that information and filter them out, right? Because you get this information and you're like, wait, I don't even have parking, and you have a car, do you fit this property? And it's really about information gathering. When you're trying to rent to a tenant, before you sign the lease, this is the time to get as much information as possible. I know it could be intrusive, I know it may be uncomfortable for you to do so, but this is your first line of defense. If someone's very reluctant to do so, it could be a red flag, right? And it is your property, right? It is a $30,000 contract they're signing. Yes, go ahead.
So how many candidates do you think that you should put to, to check out this, to assess that?
It's a good question. I would suggest on the system, we have something called the pre-screening tool, and I'm jumping all over the place, but I do apologize. So how I like to use a pre-screening tool is think of it as a glorified Google Forms, but you have the ability to put in specific property addresses so that the inquiries that come in are shelved or are organized to that particular property so that you know where that information is and what it's associated to. So I would usually start with that pre-screening tool. I always post that link. So when you put in the address, it produces a URL that you can copy and paste. I always put that into the ad, but as I know, they don't usually read the ads. So whenever they ask whether something is available, that's the first thing I send them. I say, hey, thanks for your interest. Here's a form, please fill it out. And let me know once you have, right? And right off the bat, I would say you could probably get rid of about 50% of applicants because they didn't read the ad, or they just didn't fit the tenant profile that you prefer. Again, obviously there are human rights concerns, right? If you're dealing with, I don't want this ethnicity, this race, that's wrong. But, you don't want a pet in your property. That's fair game, right? This is your property. It is your preference. Now, obviously in Ontario, there's not much you can do after the fact if they bring a pet. But beforehand, you do have a right to say no. So I would say start with the pre-screening form. It'll cut down in half. Typically, I don't even show the unit until they filled out the form. And if they match everything, then I'll set up a time, I'll show them, and then I'll take the next steps.
Sorry, how do you separate pets and personal support pets?
Totally up to you. I'm not going to comment on that.
No, but in the application.
There isn't.
There isn't?
Yeah, there isn't. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a tough call, right? So it's up to your personal preference at the end of the day, whether or not you're comfortable with it.
But it invites a talking point with your prospective tenant, because if I have a personal support dog, right, I think the first thing I'll say is, look, I've listed a pet, but this is not a dog just for leisure, this is a dog I need, right, for medical reasons.
Is there a way of screening a criteria like you only want tenants that 30% of their income is?
They are working on it. I know that it hasn't been done yet. I had this conversation with a large property manager today where they requested this feature. At the moment, it's not available. It's still manual. So you're still looking at the reports. You're still looking at the pre-screening forms to see if they fit your needs. Yeah.
Sorry, but you showed that you use Equifax and TransUnion, and some applications I've had come in were forgeries.
Yeah.
But they also list a third credit bureau. I think it's based in the States.
Experian? Because that's the last largest one in the States.
Yeah, I guess it's Experian.
Yeah.
Do you accept that as well?
So right now we don't. Right now we don't search that, right? But I'll get to that, and it's an interesting talking point. But let me continue before I run out of time. With income, nowadays it's very tough. Life is hard. A lot of individuals have what we call gig income. So in the gig economy, they're driving Uber, they're doing DoorDash, they're dog walking. So our system will allow you to essentially get them to break down what their income is. So maybe they make the $45,000, $50,000 at their day job, but they do photography or they do dog walking or whatnot on the side, they can include that. And as long as they can show that proof of income, fantastic, right? Again, cats, we joke, but we talked about, we get so many pet photos that we were going to start Instagram just for tenant pet photos and stuff like that. Lots of cute animals that come through on our actual, well, that's really blurry, but on our platform. But in the system, it allows you to make certain documents mandatory. So essentially what you do is, okay, you know, hi tenant, it's fantastic you're interested in my property, please fill out this application, and as part of the application, please upload these documents. So you can make government issued photo ID mandatory, you can make income proof mandatory, landlord references mandatory, employment references mandatory, and if they're not comfortable in providing that, then you know they can't fill out the form and they just kind of dwindle off. And as a landlord, that's your goal. You're trying to filter every step of the way to ensure that you're left with as few applicants as possible.
Does the system red flag for illegal breeds?
Illegal what?
Illegal breeds of dogs?
Absolutely.
Pit bulls,
No,
mastiffs.
that's not. It's not as sophisticated.
So what I'm trying to understand here is the fact that this system helps with supporting documents, but how does it check that those documents are actually genuine?
We will get to that briefly, kind of. So right now, at the $25 mark, it doesn't. So it's there to help you collect the information. The ID, I think they've developed something. Let me see if they have it. Okay, I think that they have, but they've developed an AI tool to allow to verify it. I'm not sure how many of you guys have seen ID verification and selfie tools nowadays. It's very prevalent in lawyers' offices when they're doing virtuals. It's prevalent a lot of times now in mortgages too. If they're going to sign documents, you have to upload an ID. You have to do facial recognition. So our system does that as well. And allows you to say, okay, you know, this guy, 98% match, it's definitely that dude. Or it's like, you know, it's kind of borderline, they didn't pass that requirement. So it will at least verify the ID, but the other documents at the $25 mark are not verified. So keep that in mind, take it with a grain of salt, and also the information from past landlords, employment references and stuff like that, not verified. You know, it could be their buddy, it could be their best friend. You never know, right? So you have to be very careful of that. Whenever you're trying to verify employment, never call the numbers that they provide you with, right? Always find the company that they work for, go through their maze of phone calls and find the actual HR manager or the payroll manager that they speak with, because that's foolproof, right? You'll sometimes run into issues. Let's say you're trying to verify a Google employee. There is a process involved, but you can get there. You know, it's a lot of hoops to jump through, but you can get there. But again, never trust anything a tenant provides you because it's just the way of the land, unfortunately. I touched upon the ability to see the different commitments and different debts that they have. So this is a snapshot of what it would look like. It will basically tell you, okay, what that credit amount is, what the balance is currently, how much they need to be committed to every month, whether or not it is bad debt, right? So if it's not, then they are essentially paid as agreed, which is on the top there. If they are late, then they're at least 120 days late. And if it's bad debt, then it's getting sent to collections, and you probably will see it on the collections line on the actual report. Again, that's what I spoke about. Essentially, it does a cross-reference. When they, obviously these don't match, but when they do it, they'll do a selfie, they will ensure that it matches the ID, and it'll give you a score as to, okay, you know, there's a good chance this is the same person. We talked about income. how rentals are nowadays and the prices that are being offered or being asked for the rental properties. It's very tough to essentially qualify with it with one income. So a lot of times it is going to be household income, and that's why we also are able to capture that information. You'll also be able to obtain that co-applicant's information so that you can run a credit check on them as well. What's next? So we're a very innovative company. We are a tech company at heart. So what we will offer slowly is you will have the ability to complete leases on our platform. So essentially, we have partnered with, I think, HelloSign, and essentially you go through our platform, you put in the information, you add in any clauses that you may want to add, and you can fire off that lease to be signed with your tenants through us eventually. We are working with some large educational institutions across Canada with their AI departments and AI departments. And essentially we are doing computer learning, machine learning to ensure that when pay stubs come across, we are able to detect whether or not it has been changed, it has been doctored or amended in any shape or form. These two are going to be fantastic for the future. So one is a universal tenant application. So nowadays, you have a lot of tenants that are very reluctant to run their credit multiple times, and they use this as an excuse to say, oh, I don't want another hard hit on my report. So we have a solution coming up, which is a universal tenant application. So think of it almost like a LinkedIn account or a Indeed account, whereby you run that credit once, you put your profile once, you can share it with as many landlords as possible. And the beauty of it is, it's verifiable, right? You can go into our system, you scan a QR code, that report will show up in your account, and you'd be able to see, okay, yes, this is an accurate report, and it can't be faked at all because it's an essential location. Lastly, it's a tenant passport. So in my line of work, as well as my line of work as a realtor, we come across every single day newcomers that are coming into Canada, but unfortunately they are very disadvantaged because they don't have Canadian credit history, they don't have any work in Canada. So what we have developed, and it will tie into some of the last slides that I'll do, is what we call a tenant passport. So eventually we will have the ability to guarantee these tenants as their guarantor when they come into Canada, and say that, okay, instead of paying the 6 months up front, the 12 months up front, get this guarantee on yourself. SingleKey will guarantee that we will pay the rent in case the tenant fails, so the landlord has more confidence in renting to you. Because right now, I have units for rent like Young and Finch, and we have newcomers, but landlords don't want them because they either don't have work or they don't have history here, and it's really difficult. And we're just talking about a basement apartment. It's not even something new and shiny, right? So, we're hopefully, again, helping the community, helping disadvantaged groups as much as possible. This is exciting. So on the topic of newcomers, starting in 2 weeks, we will have the ability to run international credit checks. So what that means is if they're coming from their home country, India, Germany, brand new to Canada, we can obtain their home country's credit information and populate it so that you guys have a head start. You're not going in totally blind. So very, very exciting. It's the same system Scotiabank uses right now for international credit checks, and we have exclusivity for a year, I think. Rent guarantee. So super, super exciting program. We've talked about the tribunal delays and the issues that have arisen due to COVID and just failure on government's end. But essentially, as I've touched upon, it's a way to transfer the risk away from being a landlord over to us here at SingleKey. So we'll cover rent up to 12 months or $60,000 if the tenant stops paying rent and refuses to leave the unit. If they just disappear, so the landlords that have been around for a while, that some of them just pack up and leave overnight. Or simply they don't give you sufficient notice when they move out. So in Ontario, sufficient notice is 60 days. So let's say they don't give you sufficient notice before they leave, then you have up to 30 days of rent protection. And it's really our way of providing the opportunity for you guys to tidy up the unit and get it rent ready again. Damage protection, as I touched upon earlier as well, is covered up to $10,000 for any damage that is above and beyond normal wear and tear. So think of damage that's attuned to vandalism or intentional in nature. So those are covered. And then probably the best part of the program, at least in my opinion, is that the eviction process is also taken care of. So right now, it's written as $1,500. It will get increased to $2,000 very shortly. And if you want to hire someone, by all means, that covers it up to $2,000. And so you can choose to use your own, or you use paralegals that we refer, or our preferred partners, and all costs are essentially covered. So you don't have to worry about it. And keep in mind, throughout that entire time period, we're paying that rent on behalf of the tenant until they're evicted. Yeah. Rent collection is included, and then if you're going through the rent guarantee program, 2 of the reports are also included. So you may run those reports first, but after the fact, you will get those costs reimbursed back to you. A lot of times, as I explained it to you, it sounds very much like an insurance product. And no one trusts insurance products. So I'm here to give you a little bit more confidence in this, that we do things a little bit differently. We're a little bit different than a conventional insurance program. So what we do differently is we approve upfront. We go through the due diligence process, the vetting process upfront, to ensure that they fully meet all criteria before we approve you and admit you into the program. And why this is important is, when you are not getting rent, you just simply can't wait 60 to 90 days for an insurance company to kind of decide whether or not you're eligible for those coverages. So in this, we make sure that we're more efficient, and we make sure you're bulletproof in that sense. The second thing that differs from us to conventional insurance programs is you don't need to ever deal with the insurance provider. We're the ones that deal with it. We have a separate demands department that deals with all the demands and the payout requests. We know how to navigate it. We do it every day. We know that they're sneaky, so we try to package and make that application as solid as possible to make sure, again, the process is efficient. But essentially, if the tenant stops paying rent, by the 4th or the 5th, you should be calling us and saying, hey, Alex, I have a tenant, it's already the 4th or the 5th of the month, I haven't gotten rent, I've tried to communicate with them, they haven't gone back to me. So at that point, we try to reach out to the tenant, we'll see what the story is, if it's a misunderstanding, if they're sending that email transfer right away, great, done. We'll revisit it next month if it happens again. If they don't pick up or they're giving excuses, then we typically start the N4 process. We'll start it, and again, if you are dropping it off, then it's 14 days wait period. If you're mailing it, it's about 19 days. And that's, after the 19 days is typically when our clock starts, and we pay out within 20 to 30 days at a minimum for the first month. That's usually only for the first month. The second month onwards, it's about 3 to 5 business days. You'll see that money into your account, and again, until the eviction happens. Even after eviction, SingleKey will provide you with an additional 30 days of rent. Again, to give you the opportunity to tidy up the unit, get it posted, show them the rent. So we, as Simone says, being a landlord and dealing with tenants, it's a relationship business. So we try to help facilitate that, mediate it. If possible, we try to keep it out of the claims and demands process because it is stressful and you have to deal with it. So a lot of times we will always talk to the tenant, offer rent help. All jurisdictions, you guys may not know, but all jurisdictions have their own rent help program. And they sometimes either offer 1 month, 2 months of a bridge gap, interest-free loans to these tenants to help them through hard times. So that should be the first thing that you're turning to. And you should be like, hey guys, have you checked out Salvation Army? Have you guys spoken with the county? Because they are there to help, and they may not be quick, but they do eventually produce results. So, that's a word of advice for you guys. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me. I think that's. Any questions?
So this product is not specifically tied to any individual product or location, it can be
Anywhere.
anywhere.
We're across North America. We have thousands of policies with the rent guarantee. Our largest market is obviously Ontario, BC, and then Alberta is our kind of sizes. If you need, I have a fantastic eviction services in Alberta, one of the best in the business. So if you're ever scared of renting your units, let me know. I'd be more than happy to share that. But yeah, all across North America, we do a lot of states ones. So we do a lot of Philadelphia, Texas, the good stuff.
The $25 fees per tenant, not per
Per tenant.
property, right?
Correct, yeah, per tenant.
So for your rent guarantee there, you said the first, sorry, not the rent guarantee, the collection of rent.
Mhm.
The first 3 units are 3, right?
Correct.
So what do you mean by the first 3 units? So let's say I have 1, 2, 3 Main Street,
Yeah.
and I have 2 more. And then is it the first tenant ever that will be free?
No.
So the tenant left and then someone else go in there, is it
Still
still
free.
the first one
Yeah.
counted?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's like, it's 3 at all time, up to 3 at
Correct.
all time?
Yeah,
Okay.
correct. And what some smaller landlords do, let's say they only have 1 property, right? But they're renting to 3 young professionals. They'll just split that 3 quota onto the separate tenants and just collect 800 from each of them.
And what's the fee beyond the 3 units?
I know that if you're within like the 10 property range, it's about $5 per month per tenant. I think once you go beyond the 10 properties, it becomes $3 per tenant per home. There's no rerun fees. The banking professionals know what I'm talking about, and there's no like monthly fees. So no subscriptions or anything like that. It's just very simple.
When did you guys have the rent guarantee? When did you start?
Started in 2019. So we started before COVID. We got lucky because our executives have the forethought of underwriting it with reinsurers. That's actually how Neighborly went out of business.
That's exactly what I was gonna say,
Yeah.
because they renege on their
Yeah.
promise.
Yeah, they had, when COVID happened, they had a $10 million ask or
Yeah.
a demand, and they didn't have sufficient funds. And, yeah.
So did you guys pay all the landlords during
Absolutely.
that time?
Yeah, so what ends up happening is when the board is closed, we can't do anything because our processes still have to adhere to the LTV. But once the LTV reopened, then we went through the processes again and we back paid everyone.
It's not a question, it's a comment. Every single landlord should be using the service.
Yeah, at a minimum, you should do a credit check. The rent guarantee is a great safety net or a peace of mind, but at the very bare minimum, do a credit check.
It's $30 a month.
Yeah.
at
No, it's
minimum.
not.
Okay,
It's just
no, I'm
25.
saying just to use SingleKey throughout your whole, process throughout the whole tenancy. Incorporate it into the rent.
Yeah.
It's nothing, it's just, it's literally $25 a month, it's nothing, and it's that peace
So,
of mind.
no, so I might have to clarify. So each report that you run is going to be $25. I think I didn't even touch upon this. The cost of the rent guarantee is 5%. 5 to 5.5% of the monthly rent per month, yeah. So
Yeah,
when you
but
do all,
why would you not do that?
Yeah.
That's no brainer.
so when you do the calculations, it's a little bit more than half month's rent for that, wide variety of protection.
Sorry, just to expand on her question, if you're covering one at the tenant, and that tenant moves in a boyfriend,
Okay.
how does that work with the rent guarantee?
You can't do anything. Under Ontario law,
Well,
you're
yes.
allowed to bring guests,
Hmm.
but as part of the process, the first initial tenant would have qualified for the program, so it doesn't change the program at all.
Okay. And for the boyfriend or girlfriend who moves in after, like, say 3 months and they're in there, are they now subject under that person's agreement?
No, it's still the head tenant, because unless you add them to the lease, they're just an occupant, they're just a guest. Yeah, they never become a tenant.
All right,
Yeah.
that was great. Thank you so much.
Make sure you scan it, we'll send you a copy of the sample report, and then we'll also give you a code for a free report, so that you can run it on yourself, run it on your spouse to see if there's any funny business. A new car, or,
When does the therapist come in?